I'm joined this morning by Maura Ginty. Maura is a tax advisor. She runs a company called Gintax. They're based in Westport, although she herself is from Ballycroy. She worked with KPMG accountants for 16 years, but she's decided now to set up her own practice down in Westport. So Maura, thanks for joining us and good morning.
Hi Tommy, hi, good morning, how are you?
You are there. You were probably so busy sifting through all the figures you didn't hear me.
We're nearly there, and I'd agree with your comments, Tommy. I think there's broad consensus, a broad positive consensus on the budget. It's certainly been framed in the context of two things no one wants, which is no deal and no vaccine. So Brexit goes bad, and we're living with the same COVID restrictions for next year. So he's been very prudent, and I think that's welcome. But that being said, there is a significant amount of spending here. As you said, 18 billion. To put in perspective, last year there was 1 billion left over in the budget. This year we are that much, 18 billion in the red, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, let's run through very quickly. From an income tax perspective, any changes in the bands?
Yeah, no, this was well flagged. There was no change at all to the rates or the bands. There was a small, tiny change to USC worth a £5 a year to everyone. Small. The main one was the €150 tax credit, extra cash back for the self-employed, and that applies widely enough, including farmers. It kind of levels the playing field a bit now for self-employed and salaried individuals there. Another one that a lot of people may not have claimed before because it was quite low is the dependent relative credit, and that's gone up significantly to €245. It used to be only €70. So a lot of people may qualify, and it'll be relevant from next year. If you look after a relative, and they may not even need to live with you, pay for their groceries or bring them to the doctors or whatever else, then you may be entitled to that credit. So it's a worthwhile one, and a lot more people should avail of it.
Okay. In relation to, say, before we get to the farmers and the COVID supports, CGT and entrepreneurs, what happened there? Yeah,
so CGT is always... It was high on the agenda because our rate is so CGT is the rate that applies if you sell shares or property, businesses, and we've a really high rate of 33%. It's one of the highest in Europe. So there's been a lot of talk about maybe about that potentially decreasing, but there was actually no change there, and that's quite disappointing. I suppose for myself, I'm not a political commentator or economist, but I know in dealing with clients, a lot of clients might have assets and they're hemming and hawing over a sale or not, and I know the second that rate comes down, then they're on the phone to me talking about, oh, maybe we'll structure it now, I might go ahead with it now. So it certainly would have stimulated demand, sales and transactions, but I suppose the Minister maybe is leaving it in his armoury for next year perhaps so we can potentially reduce it next year, but certainly there will be no change now for the next few months, for the next year on that one.
All right.
Sorry, just one other point on the income tax supports. I just want to mention, and it's one that I often get a lot of queries on, is the working from home and reliefs available. And there was no change yesterday, but there is consultations, and the Minister acknowledged that there will be change in this area, because at the moment we've a really kind of a two-tier system for claiming relief for your costs from working at home. And I suppose I'll just give you a kind of an example, just so people can understand the difference. I'd have, like, two friends would say one got a chair couriered to them from their multinational employer, no tax, no benefit in kind, nothing, just... But another individual, another friend, who had he works for an Irish company, and they're struggling, so he needed to buy his own chair and equipment, and he was wondering, he asked me about the tax relief, and the tax relief for employees is quite... it's quite restrictive, and you can understand why it would be, in that, you know, it makes the tax system very onerous if employees claim various expenses. Now, there probably is a technical basis for claiming these costs, but revenue don't like it. And in that case, he went directly and asked them, and they said no. And that's absolutely fair enough on revenues, from revenue's perspective for that area. It's an area that needs kind of more wholesale change at government level. So you'd hope in the next few months that there would be kind of equity in that in the situation between individuals where their employer can afford to pay them their working from home expenses and those who can't, and the employee has to bear the cost themselves.
Okay. Now, I know that within the COVID supports, you know, the reduction in the VAT has been widely welcomed for the hospitality and tourism industry, reduced rate of interest for tax debt, the wage support scheme is extended to the end of next year, which is really good, and the self-employed and the PUP now can work some home hours and do things to do with all of that. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is in relation to this idea that for a company who's had to close or because of COVID, there's this €5,000 a week, this new CRSS scheme. What is it?
Yeah, it's a new one. It was leaked yesterday morning in the papers, and to be honest, after the budget, we had no further information than really what had been leaked. And here's what we know, right? It applies to businesses impacted by level 3 restrictions and above, and they can apply for a cash refund. So it's really direct cash supports to businesses, and it applies. You can get based on your refund, based on your turnover from last year. Your turnover as a result of level 3 needs to have been decimated completely, down by 80%. And if we'd say you're an average pub, we'd say bringing in $6,000, or a pub, I think bringing in around $6,000 a week, then you would potentially get €600 cash back now as a result of this scheme. And seemingly the refunds, it applies from today, so waiting more guidance on it, but seemingly the refunds are due to issue really quickly, maybe in the next couple of weeks once you apply. And one important point to note on it is that this isn't free money. It's really a credit against your future tax liability. So I suppose it's to keep businesses alive so that hopefully they will be paying tax in the future. But certainly cash in businesses' hands is really welcome, and it has got really positive feedback on the detail that we have so far.
All right.
Just one other point on that. The Minister said, it just applies to customer-facing businesses only. So if you go into level 4 and 5, then it potentially doesn't apply to the likes of construction or others that aren't directly customer facing.
Now, just for farmers, briefly, more anything in it for farmers?
Yeah, well, one really positive one is stamp duty. Generally, if I go out and buy a farm tomorrow, there's 7.5% stamp duty. There is relief for transferring farms within families. That was due to expire at the end of the year, and now it continues on for another couple of years. So that rate is just 1% for family transfers. Really useful relief. Slight VAT recovery rate increase. One that a lot of farmers should be wary of is that they can claim full relief on investment in energy efficient equipment in sheds and things where it's on a certain list. Full year 1 relief, so they get a full deduction in the year of spend for that, which is a great cash flow advantage. And I just want to mention one other point on farmers, and probably get to it in a second, but carbon taxes. Farmers can actually claim a double deduction for an extra deduction for the carbon tax in their fuel for farm machinery. It was introduced a few years ago when carbon taxes weren't too significant, but now that they're increasing, it should be a lot more benefit for farmers going forward.
No, the cigarettes, they've gone up 50 cent a pack, now €14 for a pack of cigarettes. Diesel and petrol, of course, went up last night. And there's also been increases in motor tax, hasn't there?
Yeah, there has, and there's various new a new regime for motor tax, and indeed VRT has slightly changed, and there's a lot of details on that. I suppose just a little point on motor taxes that applies across the board to fuel, but the only one it was only applicable from last night for motor taxes. Fuel it'll only kick in from 1 May, so your home heating bills should be okay for the winter, which many people would be grateful for.
Absolutely. On the good news side of things, there of course this living alone allowance was increased by a £5, fuel allowance up by €3.50, qualified child payment increase there. Also child support grant is up by £1,850, which is quite considerable. What about this idea that they're going to give all of these third level college students who have to work from or study online at home a €250 one-off payment? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And again, this was one. Sorry, I was looking at it. I was looking at it yesterday, and €250 cashback. There wasn't a lot of detail announced yesterday. I was thinking this morning I was going to look it up, but you know what? Then I figured that I'd say the students themselves will be as much on the game on this one as anyone else. It seems to apply widely, and applies also for those not only that they have paid the registration fee, but also those on the SUSI grant. I'd imagine, I suspect it will apply to many or most students in Mayo who are in college. Yeah,
and finally, nothing really in it for the old age pensioners. I know the fuel allowance got a little bit of an increase, but in terms of the pensions, no change for the old age pensioners, although a bit of good news insofar as the retirement age is going to stay at 66.
Yeah, a bit of a reprieve for those, that was kind of anticipated. It certainly was on the political agenda, but yeah, good news for those in that age category in any event.
Yeah. So all in all, in summation, Maura, not a bad budget.
No, and in the next few weeks there'll be a lot more detail as to how the spending supports will be allocated and provided to various people. So there's a lot of money being spent, but the detail will all come in the next few months.
Excellent. All right. Well, there it is. No, I mean there's acres of coverage on all of the newspapers today. I mean, you can't turn a page of the papers this morning that it isn't something to do with Budget 2021. But all in all, it would appear that with so much money to spend, generally speaking, most got something out of this budget, and certainly we are preparing ourselves for a tough winter between COVID and Brexit and climate change, so hopefully we've got it right. Listen, Maura, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and by the way, you are based in Westport, you're originally from Ballycroy, you are a tax advisor, and your company is called Gintax. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Gintax.ie, not to be confused with the alcohol, should I say, and also of course you've got a telephone number as well, don't you?
085 862 1740.
That's 085 862 1740 if you want to talk to Maura and set up an appointment. Maura, thanks for doing that for us. I know it involved a lot of work, but your homework is now over, and I think you can take the rest of the week off.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. And also, I'm team birthdays on your birthday shout-outs. And I wish my brother Shane a very happy birthday. It was his birthday yesterday.
Okay, well done to Shane on his birthday. Thanks a lot, Maura, and all the best to you down there. That's Maura joining us this morning. Maura Ginty from tax advisor Gintax, Gintax is the name of her company. So that's the budget wrapped, done, dusted and delivered. You're on Midwest. It's 28 minutes to 10.